technology yet. Alright, how you guys doing? My name is Bill Kuhn. I'm a senior marketing communications major here at Columbia College, Chicago. I'm here today because I wrote a book entitled Swim, A Memoir of Survival, about a personal story that I went through. But it's not so much like a cheap plug about my book. I'm here more, which, you know, it's not so much that, it's more so how all the lessons that my teachers preach and all the PR techniques and marketing techniques that I've heard about for years all came to fruition in front of me as I worked from my studio apartment to turn my book into a international organ donation campaign in 8 months. So, without further ado, let's begin. The clicker not working, so that's awesome. First technical glitch. But, right there. I don't know, man. All right, well, let me just tell you about my life. I know it. So, you don't have to read it, you just listen. All right, perfect. Is that one for you? This one? Yeah, cool, man. All right, so basically, I was born with a congenital heart defect in 1989, specifically hypoplastic left ventricle syndrome. That day, my parents were told that I had 21 days to live. I was airborne, lifted to Children's Memorial Hospital, which is in Fullerton in Chicago. There, I was on ventilators and a whole life support deal. And on the 21st day, right before they about to pull the plug, they got a call that an infant heart transplant was available in Ontario, Canada. Flight to Life went out, picked up the heart, brought it back, and on May 16th, 1989, I became the 4th infant heart transplant in the Midwest and the 8th in the nation ever performed. So, I had a great life, completely healthy, absolutely zero problems. Then, in June 8th, 2009, about 2 weeks after finishing up my sophomore year here at Columbia, I looked down and my ankles were swollen, huge. And they were hurting. Turned to my mom, she rushed me upstairs, elevated my feet. Swelling kept building up. Rushed to the hospital, it was a local hospital. They turned to my parents and said, your son's in heart failure. So with that, transported to another Chicago hospital, which we'll go unnamed. They misdiagnosed me. I was given a defibrillator I did not need, given pills that gave me side effects, and the pills ended up not being needed. I went home about a month and a half later. I transferred my case to a different hospital, which I'll name, Northwestern, and the same transportation. Northwestern, and they correctly diagnosed me, but they also diagnosed me with end-stage kidney failure as well. I was worked up that weekend for the waiting list for hearts and kidney transplant, and I was sent home for 2 weeks. Now, in that 2-week period, there we go, one back slide now. But in that 2-week period, I was at home. I ended up having seizures one day on August 25th. And on August 25th, wow, this is horrible. On August 25th, 2009, I had a bunch of mini seizures, and I was transported to the hospital at Northwestern. And that was the first of my 70-day stay at Northwestern. And during that 70-day hospital stay, I underwent countless procedures, drugs. Anyone shout out a drug, I probably took it. So I had all those, and unfortunately, thanks to the generosity of a family during their darkest time, I ended up being saved. And on Wednesday, October 20th, I received a heart transplant. On the 21st. And on the 22nd, I received a kidney transplant. So, after coming home, I ended up writing this book. Because while I was in the hospital, and when I became sick back in July, a couple months later, I began journaling. And every day I journaled from July 5th, 2009 to February 22nd, 2010. Because I believe that if I were to journal every day and end up surviving, I wrote down every emotion, every thought, that someday that someone was going through exactly what I was going through, or they were going through cancer or anything terminal, that they would be able to find solace within my book and be able to connect with it and get some form of a support system for those who don't have giant Greek families like I did. So I began writing the book, compiled it, and I used short stories to fill in the gaps when I was not conscious, and I used short stories to tell others. And, oh, you got it. Awesome. Yeah, so I began looking at the options, traditional publishing, self-publishing. Traditional publishers began shooting me down because I'm not a celebrity, so therefore, according to their rejection letters, no one will care. So I decided to go the self-publishing route. And the beauty of self-publishing is that I got marketing freedom, which I truly love. And it allowed me to do many different promotional philanthropic campaigns, and I will begin to tell you all about those. But the first of my game plan was to contact niche market. Now, I tend to quote businessdictionary.com because the second my classes end, I trade in my textbooks. So I have this right here for anybody who's not a student or ever a marketing degree. A niche market is a portion of the market that you've identified as having some special characteristics, and that's what marketing to. So in my case, it's who I wrote the book for. I just began writing down a few names, and I came up with organ donation, heart failure groups, congenital heart failure groups, and renal failure groups, which is scientific for kidney, in case anyone knows that. So what I did was I contacted all these groups, blogs, you name it, doctors, and they began accepting the books, and they began writing reviews for me, and they began picking up. And over a period of time, I ended up getting these kind of groups, and I started getting emails from people, from cancer groups, Crohn's colitis, diabetes, terminally ill, all those up there. Just constant contact from a lot of people who just began to absorb the book and really connect with it like I had hoped so on different levels. It's not working over here. Yeah, so I ended up going with web presence, which is one of the first things that I remember my teacher saying in the beginning during I transferred sophomore year. So my sophomore year, they began preaching, was web presence is key, and you don't have anything unless you're a web presence. So I have here my website. I began branding it, much like all my teachers that ever pitched to me, because the book is not so, it's my story, but I want it for everyone else. So I have the whole website branded where people can just send me a picture to them with their copies of the book, along with me holding a picture of the book. On top of that, the number one thing I always wanted, like I said, a support system for other people. At the end of the book, I close by allowing people to contact me if they have no one to talk to. So I have a direct connect page for people to contact me. That has also come in major handy for different groups. For example, the book, I just got a phone call, or an email, I should say, from a group out in Colorado, Canada. Different people just contact me all the time to connect. And right there, I want you to point that out, which is a quote from someone who ended up being a president of a charity. After doing a little Googling about you, I'm honored you contacted Broken Hearts of the Big Bang. And basically what she was trying to get at was, if I had no web presence, I would have never gotten to work with her. And as I'm about to point out, she ended up being a huge connection, which taught me another lesson. But connecting and following web presence, these are the sites I use, which everyone's very familiar with, Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter, Blogspot. And another big lesson that I learned, 1 free equals 3. What I mean by that is, right now, free samples aren't the greatest idea because the economy's not that great, so unless you work at Costco, no one else really kind of does that. But what I started noticing was, if you give away 1 free book, you're guaranteed to get at least 3 copies sold. I've never had anything less than 3 copies sold per each individual free copy, and 1 copy alone makes up the cost of the original package that I sent out. So it's just something I really picked up, and I just keep going with that, and it keeps working. Two big things that my teachers have always preached was word-of-mouth advertising. My first pre-order sales were about 40 copies. They were strictly from my hometown, friends of friends, old sorority friends, and blah, blah, blah. The furthest book I ever shipped out, the original sales, was Wausau, Wisconsin. Through word-of-mouth advertising, which, again, my teachers have preached nonstop, by the 2nd month of sales, I was receiving emails from San Jose and San Diego. It ended up spreading that quickly. Now, the second one, big things come in small packages. You can take that in a sexual way, but I don't mean it to be. What I'm getting at is, that woman right there. That is Karen Thurston Chavez, the woman I pointed out. She's the president of that group, Broken Hearts of the Big Bend. Broken Hearts of the Big Bend is a very small charity. At first, I started just plugging away at big doctor names and big doctorates and big places. And for some reason, I came across this woman, and it was getting at me in my gut to contact this lady, but I kept putting it aside. Well, inevitably I did, and she ended up doing some big things for me, which is this one. She ended up tweeting about my book nonstop, because it turns out that Karen, after reading my book, fell in love with it so much that she has a really bad job, and she writes ad copy for office conference rooms, and she's very, very bored all the time. So, while she's doing that, she does this for me, and she tweets a lot. Well, her tweeting ended up connecting me with this group, aka Congenital Heart Defects United Kingdom. That group started talking to me, and I sent them a book, they loved it, they plugged it out. Next thing I know, I was getting orders from Australia, Spain, France, Germany, Northern Ireland, you name it, I just started getting them. The next thing that happened is they connected me, she connected me with As and Sal. This guy to the right, her name is Donna Netzel. Unfortunately, Donna passed away on the heart transplant waiting list last July. Last July, while she was in the hospital waiting, she began a program for an opt-out program for the United Kingdom. What that would mean is that overnight the law passed, every single person of the United Kingdom will become an organ donor, unless they go online to opt out. So the whole theory is the flip of percentages, 30-70 to 70-30 overnight. So with that being said, they had 3,300 followers. They put up one little Facebook link about my book. It sold 15 copies overnight to the United Kingdom. And as of the end of this month, he's putting together a 4-page book review that he's sending out to 3,300 people. All because of one book. The next that happened is she connected me with the American Heart Association. Because 2 months later, prior to me contacting her, the American Heart Association decided to hold their national convention in Gainesville, Florida, which is right next to Tallahassee. Through a conversation with her and the head president, they ended up linking me with the head president. I began doing an interview. And long story short, as of last Monday, I will be speaking to 4,000 people in October in Gainesville, Florida. And because of Columbia, I now have an international book, and I'm able to help people with organ donation and spread the word on people's lives. Thank you. Charlie Rice Minoso. I hope I said that right.